Wrong one.
Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. With me today is Coach John. What is going on today, brother?
Nothing much. Beautiful Monday. I didn't get totally killed in fantasy this weekend, so I'm happy. I'm beautiful.
That's good, man. That's good. I've always loved to hear that. I actually had a pretty good week. So week 11 was really good for me for sure. I like that. Smokey the Cat Fields gave me the win this week. Let's go. Yes, absolutely, Smokey. I had a couple of games with Fields in it, and it helped me out big time. So Let's go, Justin Fields. Definitely one of the biggest winners of fantasy this week. No Coach Gibbs this week, guys. He's got a birthday dinner tonight he has to go deal with. So he'll be back on Thursday, so don't worry about that. But we got some things to talk about today. We're going to start with our news as always here. So let's talk about some news, guys. All right. So compared to the last few weeks, it's been pretty quiet news-wise, but we actually had some pretty big players go down, and we're going to talk about it here. Obviously, some players that were injured that haven't heard much about yet are Khalil Herbert with his hip. Juju Smith-Schuster had a really scary concussion. I don't know if you saw that, John, but it was somewhat of a Tua situation at one point, I thought, with his hands. Pretty scary. Gerald Everett with his groin. Some other news that are going on. Randall Cobb could be back this week. Now, it's not big news, but it could affect some other players we might talk about soon. Jerry Jeudy, ankle injury, mild ankle injury, status to be determined, but it doesn't seem like it's a long-term thing. It got actually pretty positive reports all about that. Cooper Kupp, this was pretty big, obviously, because Cooper Kupp was a first-round pick for many people's drafts this year. Expected to miss a few weeks with an ankle injury. I think we'll know more probably tomorrow for sure, but he's expected to miss some time. This one was pretty big. Zach Ertz, knee injury, season ending. He is now done for the season, as I thought maybe he'd only miss a few weeks, but now it's been confirmed as of tonight. He has a season-ending knee injury. Leonard Fournette, hip injury. People were kind of scared about that, obviously, for the Rachaad White owners. We're loving that, but likely he'll be okay and good to go after week 12 after their bye. PJ Walker, high ankle sprain, giving Baker Mayfield the start once again. And crazy enough as it is, Ito Benjamin got released today. So, John, is there anything you want to mention here?
I guess really the big ones, Cooper Kupp is, I'm waiting to hear what happens. But if he gets a high ankle sprain and it's, 4 to 6 weeks, again, I think you can probably, for redraft, it's useless. And then, he's could get shut down for the rest of the year. So the Cooper Kupp one is pretty big. I think the Jerry Jeudy one, sounded like he rolled his ankle a little. That's not the end of the world. And then it's just funny. It's coming back to Baker Mayfield. So we'll see what happens. The Panthers offense started moving and looking all right. And then now we're reverting back to Baker Mayfield. So we'll see what happens there. But it was kind of a tough couple injuries this week.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, this could obviously open up the door for maybe Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson to kind of gain some traction. If Cooper Kupp is out, obviously for Zach Ertz, Trey McBride's name could be now floating around. Maybe Max Williams. He was the veteran guy on the team. I think he still is. They may go to a veteran direction. Just saying. Obviously, Leonard Fournette should be okay. If Baker doesn't do it, though, Sam Darnold is back and will be the backup in this game. And Ito Benjamin, Katarion Ingram is someone we'll probably mention in a few as a potential new backup to James Conner now. So definitely some interesting news. Obviously, this is probably one of the better waiver wire weeks overall, so it's going to be exciting to get into. But before we get into talking about that, we got some keep and cuts to talk about here now, guys.
My favorite.
Let's go, John. All right, let's start at the top here. Keep or cut any Rams RBs right now?
Cut them. Cut them all.
Yes.
I'm
I don't
cutting them
want
all.
anything to do with these Rams RBs. There are players that we're going to talk about in a few, some running backs I'd rather have on my team than any Rams running back right now.
Hmm.
Let's see here. Any Broncos running backs right now? Keep or cut?
Yeah, I think I'm probably cutting them just because I don't know. I don't know what you're going to get out of that offense. The offense looks useless again, and they lose Jerry Judy, who was kind of the only one showing any life. So I think we're going to go back to 15-point games for the Denver Broncos, and you just don't want that.
Yes.
You
I
don't
don't think
want
they
that.
ever left that area, but same page. I'm cutting any Broncos RB for someone from these waiver wire segments this week that may be available in your league. Obviously, don't just cut them to cut them if you don't have anyone to pick up. But yeah, definitely don't want them on my team. What about Kareem Hunt? Right now, Kareem
um,
Hunt, I know he's a luxurious backup right now. Obviously, we love to hear that. Let me finish before you go, John. But over the last 4 games, he's had just one game over 7 fantasy points.
mhm.
Do you care to keep him still?
I would, just because of two things. One, how valuable he would be if Nick Chubb ever did go down. He would just be super valuable, like a top 5 guy week in, week out, super valuable. So I do hang on to players like that, as well as he's just getting consistent. The only difference now and the first couple weeks of the season is he's just not getting in the end zone, but he's still seeing his 10 to 12 opportunities a game. So, in a real pinch, you could throw him in your flex and hope you get a touchdown. Again, I just think the value of him being one of those like Alexander Madison elite handcuffs, if something was to happen, he's worth rostering.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is that if you have Chubb and you're holding Hunt at the same time and you went that direction, I would probably still hold on to him. But if you're looking for immediate RB success and you're not feeling what you're getting from Kareem Hunt, and if there's someone out there that you like better, I'm okay dropping. I think there's like 1 or 2 players I would consider. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but uh, I'm okay in the right situation to cut Kareem Hunt right now. What about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Played about
Yep.
6 snaps this week. See a cut for you?
Yeah, he's gone. We talked to anyone who's been listening to the show all season. We talked about it early in the season that is just like he is just propped up on touchdowns, and when those go away, it's going to be a problem. And they went away, and it started to become a problem. And now they come out of the bye week. Isaiah Pacheco's getting a lot of run. Things look good there. So it's just, I think CEH, it sucks because, he was so highly touted in Dynasty, and his landing spot was amazing when he got drafted. And so I just don't think it's ever came to fruition, and I don't see it happening in Kansas City this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. At this point, you can cut him and try to grab someone else. Definitely anyone on this waiver wire segment we're going to talk about, especially for RBs. I'm willing to go out there and drop Clyde for. And we do have a question from Mo Diesel. Do I waste my #1 waiver claim on Christian Watson? Or do I start Allen Robinson next week in half-point PPR?
Man, I probably would burn my #1 waiver priority on Christian Watson.
Ooh.
I probably would. I just think, I get it. Like this feeling of like you're chasing points and you're chasing a big game. For sure, that's what you're doing. But you also have to think about it. There's no Romeo Doubs. The offense is looking for playmakers. Christian Watson was drafted to be that guy. So, maybe he's having a late season breakout and things start to click. And I'm not saying he's going to have 3 touchdowns every week, but he all of a sudden could be a decent wide receiver 3 with upside. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that. With burning #1 priority on Christian Watson.
I mean, I do have him in my top 5 players this week. We'll talk about that in a second. It's a risky move for me personally. I have him in there because I feel like the potential the rest of the season could be there, obviously, with Dobbs out for the rest of the regular season. But there's concerns that just as overall, he's been getting hurt. He gets hurt like in every other single game at this point. I don't know if this is a consistent game. Like even outside the 3 touchdowns, is he going to see consistent work? I'm not sure he does. He's seen a lot of his throws were down far deep. Now, is that going to be something that happens each and every single week? I don't know. Man, he said he would only need Watson for 1 week. I mean, they play
You
they play the Titans. They play the Titans this week, and we saw the Titans get burnt by Jalen Phillips or whatever his name was from the Broncos. I
Mhm.
mean, if you want to take that risk mode, Diesel, and if you think that you need a player to give you a big potential game, then Christian Watson can do that for you. Now, could he give you a 2 catch for 7-yard game? Absolutely.
Mhm.
But he has that upside to give you another 100 yards and a touchdown game next week. So it depends on what you're looking for with Christian Watson to do. Are you looking for safe, reliable? He's probably not going to be that on a week-to-week basis. Maybe Allen Robinson is that guy now, but if you're looking for a big boom out of somebody for your team this coming week, Watson then would, at that point, favorable for a waiver wire top overall pickup.
Yeah, I think that's, we talk about, kind of strategy and philosophy in fantasy football as well. And that just goes back to at least, my philosophy of, is Allen Robinson going to be the type of guy who can do this type of performance where he has 3 touchdowns and 100+ yards? It's like, I don't see that in the cards for Allen Robinson. Obviously, we just saw it happen with Christian Watson. So again, it's just, the ceiling is just so much higher for Christian Watson, in my opinion. So, like, if I'm setting my lineup and I need a wide receiver free, and I have Allen Robinson, who's somewhere between 8 and 14 points, or I can have Christian Watson, who's somewhere between 5 points and 30 points. It's like, I'll take my chance that maybe he gets the 30, but maybe he gets the 5. Like, that's just how I play. I just tend to like those types of guys more. And the speed of Christian Watson coming into the draft, we all knew that this was his potential. He had this field stretching potential. And so I think it's just taken some time. I'm down 30.
Down 30 this week with AJ Brown and Goddard left, and my opponent has Gibson halfway field. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, you definitely have a chance. AJ Brown could do that for you. That's fun though.
AJ Brown could probably give you 20 to 23 points this game. And if Goddard can see, AJ Brown can get you tied up. It will just depend on how much work Goddard gets to outproduce Gibson. But there's a chance.
Yeah, you know what sucks? This is so close. It's gonna make you watch the entire game.
Yes,
so you're gonna be up late watching this game because that's so close. But I think it's doable. That's a doable.
Absolutely. All right, let's get back to some more keep and cut. Deontay Johnson, John.
Oh wow, I'm cutting him. I guess I'm okay. I'm okay with cutting them, but that's tough because the target share has been there, and you expect
one game this season as a wide receiver 3.
Crazy.
I'm okay.
And he's like on pace for like 160 targets. It's insane. It's like it's just not working. Everything is close to the line of scrimmage. Kenny Pickett just doesn't seem to have that connection with him. Yeah, I think he's safe to cut.
Yeah, definitely. Who else do I have here? Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, he's probably safe to cut too. Which stinks because I love the guy, I love the player. But he just doesn't seem committed to coming back. He doesn't seem committed to the team, and so
2 games over 10 fantasy points.
Yeah,
to me that's enough.
Cut him. Yeah, you can cut him.
Yeah. And last but not least, Drake London.
Oh man.
Drake London has done nothing in over a month and a half now in fantasy. If I'm not mistaken, the last time Drake London had a relevant fantasy week was this week. He did have he did decent. He got a late touchdown in the game here. But is that enough to keep him on your team after just almost, I'd say, what is this, 6 games of being under 10 fantasy points?
Yeah,
enough to keep him.
Yeah, he's probably, in my opinion, he's a big buy low in Dynasty, but in redraft, he's probably, it's crazy. But yeah, he's probably cuttable in redraft. But I've been in a lot of Dynasty leagues, been sending out offers and feelers out for Drake London because I think once they figure out that quarterback position, both him and Pitts are going to be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm okay dropping him. If you want to hold on to him, I get it. But I'm okay dropping him at this point, even with a good game last week. I just don't know. I just can't trust him the rest of the season. So
right. Again, there's just not a lot of passes to go around, not a lot of touchdowns going around. It's just it sucks.
Exactly. All right. So last week, guys, we did pretty good overall. For me, I had Rashard White, Isaiah Spiller, Greg Dulcich, Kate Auden, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, who at least two of them did really good. Auden
Mhm.
did okay. Dulcich, didn't have a great week, but hopefully long term. Spiller, I'm hoping he gets more work eventually. He seems to be the backup now, which is good. For
Mhm.
Gibbs, he had Andy Dalton, not a great week. He had White, which is good. Wando Robinson didn't really do well. Again, we still haven't heard much about OBJ. But he apparently is healthy now, so he's still looking for a team. He might find one before the end of the month. He also had Greg Dulcich as well, and obviously didn't have a great week. John, you had Cole Kmet as your big pickup, and obviously that worked out for a lot of fantasy owners. Hopefully, Terrence Marshall, not a great week, but there's still promise that he could still do good. You had Isaiah Spiller as well, OBJ, and I can't forget your last person.
Deshaun Jackson.
Sean Jackson. Well, maybe. I mean, he's on people's waiver wire list
Yep.
this week. So, I mean, maybe he ends up doing something, obviously. So, again, decent week. We'll hopefully continue to give you guys great fantasy waiver wire pickups. So, all right, week 11 now, guys. So, on bye this week are the Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Seattle Seahawks, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, we'll start with our top 5 overall waiver wire pickups for each of us. John, you can go first, my friend. Who you got your top 5?
So my top 5, and this is kind of no, it's not quite in order, but there's my number 1 is Christian Watson. We talked about it a little bit, but if he's out on your waiver wire, go grab him. He was drafted to be this speedy, big body, deep threat guy, a do-it-all receiver. They moved up in the draft to get him, so they obviously liked him. I think it's both injury and going from a smaller school to the NFL. The transition usually takes a little bit longer, but he seems healthy. He looked good. He had a couple drops early in the game, but Rodgers still kept going to him. So I think Rodgers is kind of like YOLO. I got no one else to throw it to. So Christian Watson should see plenty of targets going forward, and he has big play ability. Next one is Foster Moreau. We watched him see a few targets get in the end zone. Again, tight ends is all you're looking for is touchdown upside and touchdown potential. And in this Raiders offense, I think there is. Next would be Darius Slayton, who is perennially on your waiver wire. He is always disrespected, but he's good for a big play every once in a while if you need him in your flex, if you're struggling with bye weeks, if you're struggling with injuries. I think you can comfortably put Darius Slayton in your flex and be okay. Nico Collins, which I love because I love Nico Collins. Nico Collins coming back off an injury. We don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Cooks going forward. So, Nico Collins is going to be, he saw 10 plus targets. I like my guys getting in that double-digit target range. So Nico Collins is a good pickup. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And my last one is Van Jefferson. It's kind of obvious with the Cooper Kupp injury. Van Jefferson saw a snap increase. Again, I think the Rams really need to figure themselves out, but they're not going to be in games a lot, which is why I don't want the run game either, because I don't think it's going to be close. They're going to have to throw the ball, take their chances deep, and win games that way. And Van Jefferson fits that role.
Yeah, no, definitely a solid top 5 overall there. I like that. All right, guys, for me, my top 5, Isaiah Pacheco falls in this category for me. It's 16 carries this week, even though it's somewhat of a blowout win. I mean, if you look at what their schedule is down the stretch here, I feel like there's games where Isaiah Pacheco is going to have opportunity once again to see 15 plus carries, and having that in a fantasy playoffs is worth rostering now and holding on to your bench. So he's someone that I'm willing to, put that like 10 to 15% on. Rashad White, definitely probably my top overall pickup, even though it's tough to say because he's going into a bye. So people might not want to go out there and say, I want to get White right now, obviously, because he's going into a bye. But if God forbid something happens to Leonard Fournette, he's already banged up as it is. They might try to rest him a little bit more, so he's good for the playoffs. Rashad White got the start in Germany this past weekend, so he could end up seeing more work at some point this season here, and I want that on my team as this Bucs team, I think, starts to figure out this offensive side. Again, he's, for me, worth at almost 30% probably right now. Guy from John had last week, Cole Kmet, and he's still under the 40% mark. At this point, he is just someone I want on my roster. And if you don't have a good tight end, maybe you just lost Zach Ertz, I want Cole Kmet on my team right now because he's just seeing red zone looks and he's scoring touchdowns, and that's what I want for my tight end. Someone that can give me 10 to 12 fantasy points each and every single week, and he's catching targets. I like Cole Kmet right now. Christian Watson, like John just said, I mean, he's a good pickup. He's risky, obviously, but he has tremendous upside and it has potential for a breakout the second half of the season. Now, he might not be someone you start first week, after picking him up, but he's definitely should be rostered more in this point and probably should be on your bench at least until you feel comfortable starting him in starting lineups. And then finally is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been quietly having a fantastic season with Jacoby Brissett and having obviously Amari Cooper on the field. I mean, and now it's to the point where he's got 4 straight games with at least 70 yards. 5 of 6 of his games have been 70-plus yards. And he's getting Deshaun Watson back in 3 weeks.
I know.
I mean, I want that on my team now, and I want him on my bench to hold. He's just performing to a pretty solid wide receiver 3 value right now that could be flexible week in and week out. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is my last one there.
Yeah, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones a lot. That's a good call because it has been kind of quiet how consistent he's been. But it's a good call out. And also to your Rachaad White take, I agree. And I'm willing to hold him through the bye. Like if he's on your waiver wire, pick him up, because if anything we've seen in the history in previous years, even this year, you can look at it. Once you come out of the bye week, rookies tend to get a little bump in production and a little bump in snaps. We already saw it in this Germany game. Coming out of the bye, it's not going to go down, in my opinion. So Rachaad White is easily a flexible asset. He's in a timeshare now with Leonard Fournette. And, again, like you said, Bucs offense can figure it out at any moment, and you want to be a piece of that.
Right, exactly. And again, I think at this point, we're getting to the part of the season where it's time to get rid of some players that just are dying on your bench sitting there. And it's time to say, all right, you know what? I'm tired of holding these players. There are players out there that just haven't performed for you all season, nor have they really started your starting lineup. It's time to go get some of these upside players now and put them on your fantasy bench, because like guys like White, guys like Watson, guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe some other guys we'll mention in a second, these guys have upside the rest of the season. So I want those guys on my team at this point. I'm tired of holding on to the guys who are dragging me down because I don't want to give them away, trade them away or drop them because of their name values. It's done. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some of the guys we mentioned before. It's time to just get that garbage off your bench and start getting these upside players now on your team, because that's going to help you potentially get into those playoffs or potentially help you win a playoff run to a championships.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
I agree. And you're at the point of the season where, I always kind of get this, and I have to remind myself this too. We're at the point of the season where you need wins. You can't wait for a guy to figure, you can't wait for, Damian Harris to figure it out and work his way back into a rotation. No, you need wins now. So Damian Harris isn't helping you. Bye. See ya. Give me someone who's going to give me points now. Exactly. Now, does that mean I don't think Damian Harris is a good player? No, I think he's a great player. I think he's a good running back. We need to realize it's week 10, week 11. This is what it is now. So, don't get tied to where you drafted them. Don't get tied to name value. Don't get tied to any of that. Just look for production and points and follow snap share and follow those things that are indicators of trends on teams.
Exactly. All right, so let's get to the final part of our day, guys. Deeper positional waivers, basically everyone who we didn't talk about at this point today. So for quarterback, there really isn't anyone I'm going out there wasting a waiver wire priority, wasting my fab on. There's literally 3 quarterbacks, and 2 of them are actually still playing right now in this week if you're looking for a quarterback. Me personally. And it's Ryan Tannehill versus the Packers and Tyler Heineke versus the Texans. Again, not great options either. So if you're looking for a waiver wire quarterback, it's not great. And Deshaun Watson would be obviously my other one if he's still sitting out there. Only 24% of the league still. So I don't know if John is someone else you want to mention, or if you want to highlight some of these guys. But again, the quarterbacks this week aren't great.
The only one I want to bring up outside of these names is potentially Matt Ryan. Potentially, and
it's got a tough matchup this week.
But it sounds so crappy.
Season, it could be, I get it.
Yeah, so it sounds crappy to bring it up. I think last episode I poo-pooed the Colts big time and talked about how bad they were and all this, and so, but Matt Ryan came out, put in 20 plus points. So I think you can do worse. He outscored Russell Wilson off the bench. So what does that tell you?
Right. Exactly. So, all right. I like it. Uh, all right. For RBs, this is a really big group that I'm willing to spend a lot of fab on. Most of these guys, I'm at least willing to spend 15 plus fab. We'll talk about those, the guys that are higher. We'll talk about those guys first at this point. There's Gus Edwards out there. He's just over 40%. If you're looking for an RB, he's supposed to be on a positive trend coming back. But this range of guys right here are in that 15 to 15 plus range of fab, or possibly spending a top waiver wire on right now. And it's Rashad White, Jalen Warren, Kerryon Williams, can't talk today, Jarrett McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, Kerryon Ingram. Those are probably the group I'm putting them all in right now of top target RBs. I don't know if you agree with that there, John, but those guys I'm willing to spend fab on because I feel like all those guys have a big potential role in their offenses the rest of the season.
Yes, I totally agree. And I'm glad you threw Keontae Ingram's name in there as well. But yeah, I'm totally comfortable. It's funny, if I had to, I'd probably rank it actually kind of how you have it. I'd slide Isaiah Pacheco a little bit higher up, but Rashad White, Jalen Warren, then probably Isaiah Pacheco, then Kyron Williams, and then Jarrett McKinnon, who's just steady Eddie every week. It's just crazy. But yeah, I think that there is some serious upside. We talk about, at least I've talked about in the past, I want running backs and good offenses. Bucks, Kansas City, Pittsburgh's not a great offense, but there's some pieces here in good offenses that you can take your shot on.
Right. And honestly, the Cardinals, when they have one back going, usually performs pretty well. So
Ingram's another good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if those guys aren't there, or if you think I'm not getting those guys, I mean, there's some other guys that could maybe help you out. Like Latavius Murray is continuing to see a role in Denver. Alexander Madison's a great handcuff backup. Isaiah Spiller is a great handcuff backup. If God forbid something happens to Austin Eckler, it could be a Spiller show. James Cook is continuing to see some work here and there. Kenneth Gainwell, if he performs well tonight. And again, we don't know how Miles Sanders is sometimes. So, and then Chuba Hubbard is another guy, just back tier guys that maybe you spend very minimal fab on, but they're there for you if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. The James Cook one it's nice to see because they traded for Nyheim Hines and then they're still using James Cook. So it's right. It's good.
Jim, we actually just answered this question early on the show, Jim, but that's okay. We'll answer it once again. John, give your quick take on Watson being a top priority pickup.
Yes. So Christian Watson, to me, is a top priority waiver pickup. If you have the number one spot, I'm okay burning it and grabbing Christian Watson for the sole reason that he has this type of game in his bag. Like, there's not many players on your waiver wire that can, be tied to Aaron Rodgers, be a deep threat, fast, big-bodied, and can score 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, it's just hard to find on the waiver wire. So the fact if he's out there and he's, again, we talked about it earlier in the show, there is a very real possibility that Christian Watson gets you 3 points, but there's also a possibility that Christian Watson can get you 20 plus points. And it's just, I love Jalen Warren. I love, Keontae Ingram. I love all these. I love even Rashad White. Although Rashad White probably has that upside in him too. But, I love some of these other pieces, but they don't have this, like, if all of a sudden the stars align and Christian Watson becomes the number one for Aaron Rodgers, which they drafted him to be and they expected him to be, but he was banged up and injured all through training camp. He was banged up and injured, the first 5-6 weeks of the season, but now he seems healthy. Now he's coming through. I would easily pick him up, and you hope you get a little second half resurgence, and he can play real well for you. I have, because I have Lazard and Boyd as my worst receiver on my bench. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, it's scary to have both Lazard and Christian Watson, but I mean, you're getting targets from Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's not like you're getting targets from Marcus Mariota. It's not like you have Damiere Byrd and Drake London. It's like you have decent players. So I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with Christian Watson.
You pick up Watson, Jim, because you expect him to have that upside. He might not see 3 touchdowns every single week, but if you're spending that waiver wire priority, you're expecting him to have multiple games the rest of the season still with a high potential of 100 yards and a touchdown. if you don't believe that's possible from him, you don't waste that waiver wire priority. But having him on your team in a 12-man league, there's not a lot of players that have that potential at this point, and Watson does. That's the thing, especially at wide receiver. And if you're looking for a wide receiver or flex play on your team, if you don't see anyone else out there like, hey, can any of these guys give me 100 yards and a touchdown any given week? And if it's only Watson, then you go get a guy like Watson on your team. Even though you might not play him right away and it might conflict with other players on your bench, it's still possible you could trade him. You could trade Lazard, whatever you got to do to get another position on your team. But he has that upside that you play for. And if you don't believe in it, then you don't go for it. It depends on your league and depends on who you are. Not every league I'm going to go out there and get Watson because I don't know if I have the space in my roster or if I'm willing to take that risk in it and rather wait on another position. But he has that upside. So if you think it's there, I think it's potentially there. I think it could be worth it. But again, it's risky.
But like a good example of this in practicum would be if you're putting in your waiver priorities and you have Christian Watson and Nico Collins are both on your waiver wire. And you're like, you know what? I don't want Christian Watson because I have Alan Lazard. So I'm going to go with Nico Collins. Does Nico Collins really have 150 yards and 2 in him? That offense, that quarterback with Davis Mills, with all? No, he doesn't. He just doesn't. Now, you might find it that you can balance your portfolio and balance your lineup better. Hi, Kyle. Because you have Nico Collins and you're okay with putting Lazard and Nico in the same lineup, which I get. But I just, to me, Christian Watson just showed everybody that he is, that big downfield, fast break a play whenever kind of guy. He's going to have his drops. He's a rookie. It's going to happen, but he has some big play potential.
Right. Exactly. Great way to put it, John. So, all right, let's get over to the other wide receivers that we might not have mentioned. Some guys just over to 40% that probably should be picked up, especially Kadarius Toney. We didn't really talk about him because he is over 40%, but if Juju Smith-Schuster's just having his time, Toney should be your top priority pickup for sure, but obviously we couldn't mention him, but I just wanted to mention him. MVS, Michael Gallup, some of these guys are under that 40. Some other likely targets. We mentioned Christian Watson. We mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. Paris Campbell now comes back into consideration with Matt Ryan at quarterback. Van Jefferson, John mentioned before. Some other guys like DeAndre Carter, Darius Slayton, Nico Collins is there. Odell Beckham. Some young guys like Treylon Burks and Jahan Dotson are coming back healthy. Hopefully they get a bigger role soon. Terrence Marshall's still a good back-end guy. Sky Moore could see an uptake if Juju's missing time. Wan'Dale Robinson. Anyone you want to mention there, John?
No, I think those are. I mean, maybe. Maybe Jahan Dotson. I guess because he did show some good red zone prowess early in the year, but that was with what's his name? Why can't I think of it? Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. Yeah.
Yeah, I was right. Carson Wentz. I was like, wait a second. It feels like forever ago. Yeah, Carson Wentz. And then but I still think he's a good route runner and is always a threat to score a touchdown. So I like Jahan Dotson a lot. And then obviously we mentioned the big ones in Kadarius Toney and MVS if they're out there, 100%. I didn't even put them on my radar for this episode because I'm assuming they're over 40% and they're probably owned at this point. But that's what I would. Those two are, going to be crazy.
Jim asked if we play any traditional PPR redraft leagues. Absolutely, Jim.
Oh my God, yeah. I played too many.
Most of my home leagues are regular PPR redraft leagues. We draft every year. It's the best feeling. I'm doing well in those leagues. So
yeah, it's funny. I do better in redraft leagues than I do in dynasty leagues. I'm a couple dynasty leagues. I'm in a few dynasty leagues and a few redraft leagues, and my dynasty leagues, I'm like in a couple of them in a perpetual rebuild. I'm always find myself selling off the deadline, which sucks. but my redraft teams are cooking.
Let's see, highest score you've seen a team put up this season, or any of your teams put up this year.
High score. Let's see. So let me pull up the biggest league, or the one that I love and is like I consider my main league, for the Love of Sundays league. I think the highest score this year was 202 points, which is tough. Like the average score is like 140, 130. So someone put up they had, Josh Allen, Diggs, some monster week. And I think it was like just over 200, which is banana land, which
That's
is
crazy.
bananas. Yeah,
That
it was a big week.
Yeah, my one big money league, week 1, I put up like 160, and I average about like 125 a week. So I'm doing very well, 8-1. So, but I've seen leagues. I mean, this is some of them are dynasty, but I've seen dynasty leagues put up like 268. I've seen some crazy scoring on some leagues there. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun watching. I love seeing people get big leagues.
There's
Scores.
nothing better than when you just start really running up score, and you're like your team is just on a roll. You have Justin Fields, you have Cole Kmet off the waiver wire, you have Alvin Kamara scoring 4 touchdowns. It's just so fun when your team is absolutely lighting up the board. It's just a different feeling than when you're like grinding it out. And it's like you have to wait until like the 4:30 games to see how your team's doing, and it's totally different. But it's fun every once in a while hitting a home run.
Absolutely. So just real quickly about the wide receivers, some of the guys we mentioned early on, like Watson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Campbell, and Van Jefferson, they're going to be more of that, 15 to 20% plus range if you're looking for a wide receiver. All the rest of the guys, lower bids. Maybe Burks could be up in that conversation, maybe Dotson, but the other guys we mentioned before, like Carter, Collins, Slayton, for me personally, they're a little bit lower in terms of price, but definitely good value this week at wide receiver. And then finally, our tight ends. So the likely guys, Cade Otton, Cole Kmet, pretty high up there. Isaiah likely could be up there depending on what goes on with Mark Andrews this week. Again, I'm not putting a lot of money on that because I think Mark Andrews will be back, but he is a big guy to have. Foster Moreau, like John said before, Noah Fant, Trey McBride comes into play now, and Tyler Conklin. Anything you want to mention with those tight ends?
I'm actually, so it's funny. I like Isaiah Likely with or without Mark Andrews. I think Isaiah Likely is good enough to garner targets. They like running 2 tight end sets, and so Isaiah Likely is athletic enough as a tight end that he can do a lot with a little. So he could have 6 targets and be just fine. And that's rare. It's rare to find in the tight end world, and they need pass catchers. They're not going to rely on Devin Duvernay every play. They're not going to rely on Deshaun Jackson every. So even if Mark Andrews is back, and there's obviously the risk that he's not, I like Isaiah Likely. I think he's just a good football player.
He definitely is, and especially if they're coming out of the bye, he could see an intake in production. He didn't really do much before then, besides a touchdown here and there, but we'll see. But this is a good group of tight ends. I think most of these guys, if you're looking for a tight end, good 10% plus, 5% plus more. So good group of tight ends to pick up if you're looking for tight ends for sure. And we got Lamb Cup. Which tight end do you prefer, Everett, Freiermuth, or Higbee?
Well, Everett's banged up. Higbee could see targets because Cooper Kupp's gone, but you're in a not very efficient offense. Freiermuth isn't in a for efficient offense either. I'd probably Freiermuth.
Yeah, probably Freiermuth the rest of the season, followed by Higbee, then Everett personally.
Yeah. That's how I would
Higbee
do it.
could jump Freiermuth if he does really see an intake of targets. It's possible, but I'd prefer the guy who's been performing. He even did do pretty decent against the Saints, who are really good against tight ends. Freiermuth. So Freiermuth probably is the top guy for me rest of the season. So,
yep.
All right. So if anyone has any final questions, we're going to be wrapping things up here. It was a good show today. Pretty quick and easy here. Got through a lot of waiver wire pickups. Hopefully some guys that you guys can help you pick up for the season. Again, if you have any other fantasy questions that we might not have got to today, guys, please go hit us up on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. More than glad to help you out with any waiver wire pickups. John, is there anything you want to mention before we get going?
I just want to mention to my friend Brian, who is in the FTLS with me, and after week 3, I dropped Justin Fields. And my friend Brian picked him up, and I just want to shout him out because I hate him because Justin Fields is blowing up right now. And yeah, shame on me. I never should have dropped him. But I'm pissed. And Brian, this is a shout out directly to you. I'm pissed that you have him on your team. If it was anyone else in this league, I would be okay with it. But the fact it's like my rival, my best friend from preschool, it hurts so much more seeing him put up these monster weeks.
God.
Yeah. But that's all I got.
I love it. All right, guys. Like I said, appreciate y'all for listening. Please appreciate you guys for tuning in and throwing some questions in the chat for us. So again, we'll be back every Monday and Thursday to talk fantasy with you guys. So, hit us up on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy if you want to subscribe to us. We love that. Appreciate that here on YouTube. Like us over on Facebook. Just give us a comment or review on any of the social media, or not social media, but music apps you might use to listen to us. Or if you're listening to us live, even better. And we'll be back on Thursday, guys, to talk more fantasy with you. So thanks for listening. Tune in until next time and take care.